Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto video. This is going to be my speculation ahead of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 9, which is coming out on the 19th. Not the 20th, it's the 19th, so a day earlier than we kind of would expect it. But yeah, it's going to be the start of Volume 3, basically, of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, and there's some stuff to talk about here. The timing on me doing this video is actually quite interesting. We did just get the preview page for the chapter. So up on the official Naruto website, we have this, this is a page from Chapter 9, showing Boruto confronting Kawaki. And if you read Chapter 8, you're kind of like, wait, how does this happen? Because Boruto literally, like, heads off, like, before Kawaki can confront him. And in the space of a chapter, he's going to come right back because, like, Kawaki was basically unconscious in like, the last chapter, at least temporarily. So this is quite a big turn of events, and arguably you could say that the more interesting part of the chapter is like, explain all the Himawari stuff first. But you can see here, Kawaki tries to attack Boruto with his ocular jutsu here, firing the kind of rods at him. Boruto just casually dodges to the side. Kawaki stunned at how effortlessly this was done. Delta watching this kind of carefully, she's here as well, as Boruto walks to confront Kawaki. So what's going to happen here? Because surely this isn't the big confrontation. Like, a lot depends on obviously what they do with Jura and Hidari, who are in the village. Like, is this just happening while they're off doing something, or has what's already happened with Jura, Hidari, and maybe Himawari already happened at the point when Boruto arrives back? Because you'd think he'd be a little bit more focused on like protecting Himawari and like other characters than necessarily immediately jumping to confront Kawaki. So I wonder when exactly this takes place. My assumption probably is towards the end of the chapter, because I think there's probably stuff you want to do at the start. But anyway, that's the preview thing there. So going back to Chapter 8, what actually happened? Of course, we got Kawaki being suspicious of Shikamaru with how convenient the timing of Boruto's escape was. This feels like the sort of thing where, like, because of that preview page, it kind of feels like, well, how quickly is this even going to come into play necessarily if they're just confronting each other potentially in the next episode? Interesting. Ada and Mitsuki have had a whole conversation which eventually resulted in Ada kind of revealing that she wants to have a long talk with Boruto, with the idea being that like Mitsuki and Ada kind of like bonded a little bit over their basically over the fact that they have a similar sort of like bond in a way with Boruto. Like, to a certain degree, like Mitsuki's dynamic with Boruto is sort of a similar thing to like Ada and her just dynamic in general with kind of love. And, you know, it was interesting. People were saying there's some weird translation stuff going on there. But the result is that Ada, of course, I think is developing feelings for Boruto, whereas Kawaki was the one she'd kind of chosen before. So what exactly is going to happen here, you kind of wonder, is the question. Jura and Hidari, of course, infiltrate Konoha. Jura completely takes out Kawaki with ease, to the point where, like I said earlier, he was basically like out cold, unconscious, just waking up at the end of the last chapters. But it seems like he does get straight back up, based on the preview page, of course. They're, of course, teasing that Sarada is going to have a confrontation with Hidari. So unless she's really late to arrive on the scene, she should arrive there and be able to see this Divine Tree character who looks like her father. And then the big one, the big cliffhanger ending, is that Jura, of course, is tracking then his target, which is Naruto. Again, Hidari's target is Sarada, so that's going to be interesting as well. Not just Sarada towards Hidari, but also Hidari towards Sarada. Jura's target is Naruto, and by the way he tracks her down, it brings him to Himawari. The person that he's been sensing, thinking it's Naruto, ends up being Himawari, revealing that she has tailed beast chakra inside her, which confuses everyone seemingly on screen in the chapter, as well as I think most readers here are talking about this. So we need to have a big discussion, mega discussion here about what exactly is going on. How on earth does Himawari have Tail Beast chakra? So Jura, tracking down Naruto by sensing Tail Beast chakra, Biju chakra, whatever way you want to refer to it, he says he can do this since he is also effectively a tailed beast because he is a fraction of a 10 tails, which is a tailed beast. That means he has a connection to that sort of type of energy because effectively he is made out of this sort of living energy in the same way that the tailed beasts are, so he can sense this within people. And he's sensing this because, of course, as far as he's aware, Naruto is a Jinchuriki, and that's what he's sensing. So he seems to be looking directly at the person he's sensing, and that is Himawari. We don't know the exact details of this, which we'll get into here. First point, obviously, is, wait, does Jura not know that Naruto is no longer a Jinchuriki? It is a bit of an odd point here about this, of just it's this weird logic kind of situation where, like, we, of course, know, well, you can't track Naruto down like that anymore. Kurama's gone. You know, why is Naruto his target begins to come up here. If he is based on Ishiki, I guess Ishiki died not really knowing what Naruto's situation was, so the clone of him effectively as a divine tree also wouldn't know because of the timing that Naruto lost his tail beast kind of stuff in the process of using Baryon mode. That's something we definitely will have to wait and see. The asterisk I have here is just with the idea of, like, what was confirmed, of course, is that Kurama is gone. But what does that mean for the idea that Naruto also has sort of like fragments of all of the other tailed beasts inside him as well? A bit of a point that gets brought up every so often but doesn't get referenced sometimes. The main point being, of course, that he is depowered. He doesn't have these Jinchuriki abilities that he kind of like used to have. But it's the idea of basically, could he have even tracked Naruto down by using this sensory method? Like, does he have the fragments of the other 8-tailed beasts inside him, just no 9 tails? So it still could have worked. Or was specifically Jura, you know, tracking down based on the chakra signature, basically, of the 9-tailed fox? Kurama. Unclear. So, yeah, then we have to answer the question, how, what, when, where, why about Himawari having tailed beast chakra. So, first of all, it is important to note that the chapter doesn't directly confirm that it's Kurama related. It probably is, but the chapter has not said 9-tailed fox, Kurama stuff in relation to Himawari. So the point here is that Himawari actually has a connection to the 1-tails as well as the 9-tails. The 1-tails connection is a bit weird. It's an anime episode where she does literally interact with Shukaku. Like, she holds the little kind of jar that he's in and like talks to him. So like, she's had an interaction with Shukaku. She likes the 1-tails. But of course, the deeper connection is, of course, that she's the daughter of Naruto, who was Kurama's Jinchuriki. She's part of the family that has a deep connection to Kurama, to the 9-tailed fox. With regards to the other tailed beast, as far as we're aware, the 8 tails in Killer Bee, that's the only like other Jinchuriki still active. Whereas tailed beasts 2 through 7, the other ones, are apparently just not attached to any person. No Jinchurikis involved here. They are just hanging out around the world free, doing their own thing, I guess. There is potentially still the idea that they're all connected together to a certain degree through Naruto, but again, we don't really know the situation there now that Naruto has lost the whole Kurama situation there. But Kurama definitely is the go-to thing. I really would be surprised if they went with a different tail beast, like 1-tails potentially. Like, they could do it, maybe. Like, if they really want to commit to the idea that Kurama is just straight up gone, 1-tails probably is the other way to go with it, but how do you explain it? It needs a kind of complicated explanation. Kurama, at least there's probably a pathway to explain how it happens, which we'll kind of get into here. But anyway, it basically has to be Kurama's chakra that's involved here. It fits for her based on who she is, the family connection, and also the idea that the person looking for Naruto tracks Naruto's signature down to Himawari. Obvious connection, that sort of thing. Then we bring up some of the details surrounding like Kurama's death and just how sort of permanent it is. We know as a lore point within the series that tailed beasts, when they are sort of destroyed, quote unquote, or when a Jinchuriki dies with a tailed beast inside them, the tailed beast dies temporarily, but they are kind of reborn, they kind of form somewhere else at a later point. There is an interval between this happening. I believe this got brought up. I think it's actually during the Kushina and Minato flashback that it's when Kushina kind of talks about how I'll like go down with the fox inside me, and at least it will be kind of away from the world until the interval when it basically like respawns. So that's what we've known about these kind of energy kind of chakra creatures for all of this time, is that they are effectively immortal. Kind of like spirits in Avatar, it's just that idea of like you can destroy their form, but that form just kind of reforms somewhere else. But the whole point of Baryon mode and what led to this kind of quote unquote permanent death for Kurama was that Baryon mode effectively like destroyed and sort of consumed Kurama's energy to take energy away from the opponent. That was the whole like intent of the ability, that this was a full-on Kurama is a being made of chakra, and he's effectively sacrificing the chakra that he's made of to give Naruto a incredibly powerful ability. And it seemed like the intent is that this is a permanent death, because again, because of the whole rebirth situation with the tailed beasts, otherwise Naruto could just find Kurama again and they could always connect at a later point. So the stakes are not as high, so this felt more like this is a workaround to permanently kill off Kurama. But if that's the case, how does Himawari have Kurama chakra inside of her? And the question comes up then, was she born with it? And if so, does that mean that Boruto also has some inside of him? Why one kid of Naruto and Hinata and not the other? Especially with Himawari being the younger one. That's a bit of an interesting thing. Now, this maybe delves into the whole idea of some of the special stuff that Boruto has, because it's like a pretty important lineage. It's like, Uzumaki with the Hyugas, like it's a powerful bloodline, of course. So does that explain some of the stuff going on with Boruto? But then also Naruto is a Jinchuriki when he had both kids, so does that have an impact? It's a little bit of a confusing point, because again, there's the whole idea of Himawari, Boruto, and Naruto all have the kind of whisker marks, which seems to be some sort of a rough connection to the idea of like they were born to a couple where there was a Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails involved, so some visual distinction kind of came over because of that. So it kind of leaves a bit of an opening for like, what's to say some of Kurama's chakra was not also born within Himawari and stuff like that, because it creates this situation where like, okay, so the core chunk of Kurama inside Naruto was destroyed, but if there is a small piece alive within Himawari, then of course that becomes like the rebirth sort of pathway for Kurama, to slowly grow, I guess, within Himawari to the point where I'm guessing now it's maybe big enough to where we might actually see the full-on rebirth of Kurama happen at some point soon. Himawari being told about this being the case could be the opening to this. There's also maybe the chance that she kind of knows about this and has kept it secret, and there's a way to do a reveal in that way. So that's all kind of fine there. Then the question comes up of like, okay, if she has some of Kurama's chakra inside of her, is she a Jinchuriki? Is Kurama going to be reborn, or is it just that she has a certain amount of chakra inside of her? And what exactly does that mean? Because again, chakra as a rather generic term here, but then they are being kind of specific here with tailed beast, Biju chakra. What's going on here? Making Himawari into a Jinchuriki certainly makes her feel incredibly important within the story. while also sticking to the plot point of Naruto being kind of depowered. I think that's actually a cool way to do it, to actually, like, Kurama is back, but maybe slightly different, and also within Himawari, whereas Naruto now has to go ahead with, like, okay, my friend is alive again, but inside my daughter, how do I feel about that? And then, if whenever Naruto re-enters the story, like, are they going to create a pathway for him to become more powerful again, or are we fine with just having the older characters, like, just not be as powerful as the younger characters can potentially be? We also have to bring in the other interesting point with Himawari from the series, which is from chapter 77, Demon's first interaction ever with Himawari. He goes to attack her, and he says that he felt an intensity from her when he went to attack, but, like, stopped right before, like, punching her, basically. He gave the impression that, like, you come across as, like, a weakling, but then last second I sensed something within you that kind of made me hesitate a little bit. But then I looked at you on the outside, and it's like there's a confusion from Demon here, kind of highlighting some sort of, like, hidden power within her, which would make sense to kind of be a pre-time skip tail beast slowly growing within her. Now, this gets into a weird point here of, like, why would Demon call this, like, intense necessarily, when he doesn't, like, rate a lot of characters based on how powerful they are, because, like, he is the most powerful character in the series as far as we're aware. It didn't seem like he cared too much about, like, Naruto necessarily, so why would he care about, like, Himawari having effectively the same fundamental power that Naruto had? It's an interesting one, because he does say intensity. He doesn't say she's one of the most powerful beings I've ever encountered, but that just speaks to the idea of, like, we need more with Demon, of course, overall. And you kind of wonder, like, you know, would Kurama maybe have been able to been reborn at this point to defend her if Demon had actually, like, attacked her properly? But I think there's a bit of setup from previous chapters for this, and it actually fits in relatively well with, I think, the direction that makes quite a bit of sense. Getting into other stuff beyond Himawari, with Jura, it brings up the idea of, wait, is his target actually Himawari and he, like, misinterpreted things? Or is it still Naruto, but this is just, like, a weird kind of confluence of circumstances coming together that the way he chose to track down Naruto led him to Himawari? But then, does him finding this out about Himawari mean anything to him? Or will he, like, in the sense of, like, will he try to capture Himawari? Or will he, like, just ignore her and move on to find Naruto? Because, you know, this has allowed for an interesting reveal for the readers, but the character Jura doesn't really care about it. But it means something to Himawari and other characters around her. That's the kind of interesting point here. Because, again, this is where we bring up the idea that it seems like Jura doesn't actually know a lot of recent information about Naruto. Not many characters, because of the omnipotence, of course, know that Naruto's actually alive. And of the ones that do, if only a couple of people really know about the whole dimension that, like, they're actually, Naruto and Hinata are being held in. So how's Jira going to find this out? And then when he does, can he just use Ashiki's powers to go there? Or does he need Kawaki to make this happen? And when exactly is this actually going to happen? So there's a bunch of questions that could come into play here, depending on what approach they specifically take. Moving over to Hidari, who is also here. He's obviously about to see Sarada for the first time. And the setup here seems to just be, this is going to be, I guess, a straight up fight. There's going to be some emotion here of Sarada, I suppose, seeing for the first time that, oh, this is confirmation that, yes, my father has been captured by one of these trees, and this is effectively just a cloned, almost, version of him. Am I willing to fight this? No, I have to fight this to kind of test myself, to prove myself. And we want to see Sarada in action. Sharingan stuff, we want to see Mangekyo Sharingan. Just how much has she improved? And the explanation required about, like, who trained her? Who trained her to use the Mangekyo? Given that Sasuke wasn't around, and it's obviously, like, Kakashi potentially. But then I also asked the question of, like, is Sakura ever going to come into play? Because, like, Sasuke is important to Sakura as well, and it would make sense for her to be involved at a certain point. She she should be right there somewhere in the village, so why not? And this is always the problem that we tend to have with some of this stuff, is like, all of the original Naruto cast members should be arriving on the scene. Like, we should be seeing, like, Choji, Rock Lee, all these characters kind of coming out. I suppose we'll eventually see them, but, you know, they can't overload us with characters, I guess. Other question is, of course, will the other two Divine Trees join the fray? Because, of course, Matsuri is after Konohamaru, and the Bug one is after Ada. We didn't see Konohamaru with the group with Himawari last episode. It was just the team plus Himawari. So where is Konohamaru? And then, of course, we had some stuff with Ada, but we've yet to really go in depth on what this whole dynamic is really about. Why is the Bug one specifically after Ada, and what exactly is going to happen there? Because there's a lot of moving parts here. It seems like there's only two of them in the village now, but then we're potentially having Boruto and Kawaki interact as a big focus of the chapter. Who really knows? And that's the big question of, like, are we straight into the big fights here? Like these are going to be final fights of potentially maybe Sarada going up against Hidari, but that feels like one of the final fights, and we haven't even set up maybe properly some of the other ones just yet. So are things going to get broken up here, where characters go in their separate directions, allowing us to maybe take some time to deal with Boruto and Kawaki or whatever? And it brings up the question of, like, Jura and Himawari, how's this going to resolve itself? Will he kidnap Himawari because she has the abilities of Naruto, and he's a bit confused about what exactly is happening? Or will he just kind of leave Himawari there and leave to figure out how to track down Naruto? Because he seems to be focused on the idea of information, and he doesn't know enough information, and he needs to read more books to find the right information. So is he going to act recklessly in all of this? It's kind of hard to say exactly. But that's where we need more characterization on kind of everyone. I'm excited for the chapter because the last chapter was maybe not full on, you know, end of a volume worthy necessarily in terms of doing anything huge. So it feels like it's more of a maybe setup for this entire volume 3 to maybe be a pretty big volume for the series overall. And the fact that we are going to maybe get Kawaki and Boruto interacting is fascinating, because the implication from this is that Kawaki realizes he isn't a match for Boruto right now. So Boruto also is not after, like, killing Kawaki, or necessarily even like, oh, let's immediately reverse the situation. He wants to kind of knock some sense into Kawaki, but he kind of seems to be aware that Kawaki is the one who has to reverse things. But then the timing kind of comes up in terms of, like, should we resolve what's happening with the tree characters first and then deal with reversing omnipotence, or do it the other way around? Like, reverse things and then deal with what's happening. It's an interesting situation, because Kawaki has been portrayed as a little bit pathetic in quite a few of these chapters, where, like, not a lot of characters are super, like, respecting him. He's not treating the characters he's meant to be acting as friends with in the right way, and he's taken a couple of losses in kind of fights and scenes and stuff like that you feel he maybe shouldn't have. And now it seems like Boruto has utterly surpassed him. How's he going to react to that is the big question. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are heading into chapter 9, especially on the whole Himawari situation. What way are you expecting that to get resolved? What do you think the situation is for how she has tailed beast chakra within her? And then what do you think the preview chapter means? Are we focusing on Boruto and Kawaki? Are the Divine Tree characters the villains going to be the focus in terms of big fights? Or are we doing something completely different? Let me know below, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.